8 weeks of unrest have left their mark on the streets of Hong Kong, and many fear the violence is eroding the region's business-friendly reputation.
They were going to delay business opening today because of they didn't feel the area was safe because of the protests.
Hong Kong's economy grew just 0.5% in the first quarter, the slowest since 2009, and officials say it could get worse. Finance Secretary Paul Chan says unemployment is likely to rise from its current 20-year low of 2.8% as a result of the protests. Luxury brands are reporting slower sales as stores close and tourists stay away. And the Hong Kong Retail Management Association says the unrest could damage the region's image as a safe investment destination. Protests started in June over a bill that would have allowed extraditions from the self-governing Chinese territory to the mainland. Demands have broadened to include greater independence and the resignation of the territory's leader, Carrie Lam. But Beijing says it has her back.
The
central government firmly supports Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the Special Administrative Region, the police and strict law enforcement, the relevant departments of the government, and the judicial agencies to punish the criminals.
Pro-democracy groups are urging China to negotiate with protesters.
All Hong Kong citizens understand that the ultimate problem is political. The government doesn't solve the political problem. Instead, it tries to say that the main problem is security, which is rooted in the political problem.
Critics say Beijing has chipped away at Hong Kong's autonomy bit by bit over the past decade, and allowing that to continue would leave lasting damage on the economy. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Sean King in New York. He's Senior Vice President of the business advisory firm Park Strategies, who focuses on Asia. He was also a Senior Advisor for Asia at the US Commerce Department. Welcome to Money Talk, Sean. Now, as we heard, these protests have rocked Hong Kong for the past 2 months now. How much longer do you think they'll continue, and what do you think will bring them to an end?
I think they're going to continue for a while yet. And it started out about the extradition bill, but now it's come into general discontentment over Hong Kong's lack of universal suffrage and interference from Beijing. Beijing standing behind Carrie Lam because they don't want a demonstration of people power that shows the people's voice can extricate Beijing's handpicked leaders. So I think we're in a standoff, and this could go on for months.
Yes, and you're right, because they seem to have taken a different dimension now. The controversial extradition bill has been shelved, as the protesters had demanded, but now they're calling for this chief executive of Hong Kong to resign. Do you think that will be enough if Carrie Lam steps down?
No, and Beijing, as made clear in its first ever Macau-Hong Kong Affairs press conference yesterday, or today, will not do that, because again, then they'd be admitting they're wrong, giving the people the power to veto future leaders who wouldn't be any different from Carrie Lam in his or her views. And the demonstrators not only wanted the bill shelved, but they want it withdrawn, and Carrie Lam and the Hong Kong government has refused to do so. And even if she went away, even if this bill went away, this has finally woken up Hong Kong's populace to Beijing interference and a lack of Hong Kong's own determination of its own affairs. And for the first time, the business community is sympathetic with the protesters, because the extradition bill that started this says that you can be extradited to mainland China for crimes there. So anybody who's been on the mainland, be it foreigners too visiting Hong Kong, are thus under threat of being spirited away to the mainland on trumped-up charges or fake crimes. So really, the majority of Hong Kong is behind the protesters, so this will not end anytime soon.
Okay, I want to talk more about the impact on the business community. We know that Hong Kong is one of the world's major global financial hubs. As the protests have dragged on, there have been ongoing concerns that perhaps it might hurt Hong Kong's reputation as a financial hub. Do you think that's the case, or what impact are these protests having on that image?
Hong Kong was already under economic pressure because of a slowing mainland Chinese economy and the US PRC trade war. Exports from Hong Kong are down 8 months in a row. And we'll see what happens on Wednesday when Q2 GDP numbers. But just anecdotally, I saw that jeweler Chow Tai-Fook says sales are down 11% since the protests started, and tourism growth is down more than half since June. So, the bigger macro factors like the U.S.-China trade war could be pushing it more than the protests. But long term, this speaks to Hong Kong's ultimate demise as a multinational hub. Hong Kong is dying anyway. This just moves it forward because in the year 2047, Hong Kong becomes a regular Chinese city. And who wants to do business there? So especially if this extradition bill ever goes into force, foreign businesses won't want to go there. There's already a shift out of Hong Kong, and Singapore will be the chief beneficiary. So gradually, Hong Kong is losing its status as Asia's multinational financial hub.
Okay, can I ask you more on that topic? Because there are anecdotal reports that money businesses are already moving out of Hong Kong, as you say, to places like Singapore. Is that happening en masse?
Not en masse. I think it's happening bit by bit, certainly with wealth management. And I think, it's not going to be an immediate thing because people have until 2047 for it to happen. But say the next time a company, it's time for them to renew their lease in Hong Kong versus Singapore, what do? When expats want to relocate, where do they want to be? Singapore is its own master. It's not a U.S. ally, but it's friendly. It makes its own decisions. And, in the U.S. Congress, for example, Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Republican Senator Marco Rubio from Florida are talking about taking a closer look on differentiating Hong Kong from the mainland for tariff purposes. So Hong Kong may even lose its special treatment, and Fitch Ratings is threatening to downgrade the city's credit score. So bit by bit, Hong Kong is losing its luster. And I think in 10 to 15 years, we will have seen a sizable shift out of Hong Kong to places like Singapore.
Many people are keeping a close eye on Beijing's reaction to these protests. Do you fear or do you think that Beijing might intervene more forcefully if these protests continue?
I don't. Beijing obviously would have no moral qualms about it. After all, they murdered thousands of their own people on live TV in 1989. And Article 14 of Hong Kong's mini-constitution, the basic law, says that if Hong Kong authorities request it, the PLA garrison, about 6,000 troops in Hong Kong, can be used to restore order. Now, we all know that Hong Kong's one country, two systems, which was in fact originally designed for Taiwan but rejected by Taipei in the early 80s, is a scam. It's a total farce. But if the PLA troops were to come on the Hong Kong streets, then it would be lost forever. They would forever lose what last sympathizers they have among the Hong Kong population. So unless things get truly dire and truly chaotic, I expect the PLA not to intervene, and Beijing's just going to strong on by other means. But I don't expect PLA troops on Hong Kong streets.
Okay, Sean King, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for your analysis.